to the Scott Harness Podcast.
Hey everyone, I want to welcome you to the Scott Harness Podcast. Today is a special day. I can't think of someone that I admire more, that I'm more excited to talk to, and you're going to get to hear some stories that I promise you will absolutely change the way you think about a lot of stuff. So today we have Christie Erwin with us, and she is from Project Zero. She is also an author. She authored an incredible book called The Middle Mom, and maybe Montana can put that in the comments on one of our, where we're streaming. But one of the things that's really cool, let me say this to you before we dive into it. If you are on our YouTube channel, be sure and like and subscribe there. Click the bell so that you can kind of keep up with what's going on. On Facebook, share this podcast with people. This helps us get information out. Our dedication to you is this, it's one simple thing. We're going to raise the topics. You're going to bring your friends. And I promise you it's going to be engaging, it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be important. But like I said, Christie Erwin's with Project Zero. Christie is, and I've told her this before, so this is not out of turn, she's the Mother Teresa of our community. I'm telling you, y'all, it's a fact. It is a fact. She has made it a point to dedicate her life, and not only her life, she leverages her whole family. They're like the special forces of the helping these children in the foster care system. Amazing people. Project Zero does a lot of things, and Project Zero was the birth child of something that was in Christie's heart, and we're going to be talking about that today. Yeah. We're going to be talking about what that comes from. Christie, give us just a little bit of history about maybe when your heart was first broken over these kids, and how'd you kind of walk into this thing?
Well, first of all, it's great to be here. And I mean, second episode, what can I say?
Exactly.
I'm honored, I'm humbled, and Scott and I have labored together in this for years.
That's right.
And I've been friends as a result of a shared passion for lots of things.
That's right.
But honestly, it's really interesting because the call to action for my life happened in a really weird way.
Yeah.
It was actually about 28 years ago, in January, 28 years, which seems impossible since I'm in my 30s. But
exactly. I was thinking the same thing.
I mean, and I had 3 preschoolers at the time. I had 2 boys and then a daughter that was a year old. And I was sitting on a January day rocking her. My boys were asleep in another room, which was not the norm. And I just began to think about her life and how humbled and blessed I was to get to be her mom and how precious she was. And just as quickly as those thoughts came, they turned to every baby who didn't have someone to rock them and love them and nurture them. And then to the babies who would never be born because of abortion, just to be quite honest. And I just felt the Lord impressed to my spirit in a way that has really only happened a few times in my life. And here's what I have felt him say. It's time for you to put some action behind the empty pro-life words. The world has seen enough picketing, marching.
It's good.
Judging, criticizing, preaching. They need to see action. And it's time.
It's good.
And then just gave me the words to this song that I just sang. And I got up and I wrote it down. And when Jeff got home, my husband, I sang him this song. And I think he thought I had been with preschoolers a little too long. But I said, the Lord is calling us to something. And I don't know what that looks like. So long story short, after a lot of prayer, we began, seeking out what that was. And I really thought I would be with birth mothers because I had 3 preschoolers. It made no sense for me to do something else with other children. But God's plan does not always make sense, or often does not make sense. And so we began fostering newborns for a private nonprofit. And I don't know how much you want me to get into that, but we did that for 11 years. And then we moved to the state of Arkansas and fostered there.
How many kids has come through yours and Jeff's house?
Over 50.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how many, but those early years, it was kind of like being perpetually pregnant. You'd have a newborn and you'd be up all night, and they'd go to their adoptive family, and then you'd have another newborn. And we kind of like to call that the country club of foster care, because it was just a really neat agency, a really a godly, just compassion-filled agency. And then I said when we moved to the state, we kind of lost our country club membership, and things changed. And but God had a plan for that too.
Oh, he did. Well, one of the things that Christie does is, like I mentioned earlier, Project Zero. And so what started out as God motivating you to open your home to make a difference in the lives of these kids, which I always, when someone mentions something like this, I always think about that final scene in Schindler's List where they're standing out there and, it's this moment where he begins to inventory what he could have done and what he did. And then his accountant, this sweet, incredible Jewish man, says, hey, no, I want you to look at this. And he has him look at all these kids that were rescued. I think about for you, I can't imagine what's going to be like in that day when you begin to see the repercussions of how God has used your life. You and Jeff together. Y'all are like the dynamic duo, by the way. Every time I run into Jeff, her husband is, Jeff is the kindest, calmest, neatest, careful guy I've ever seen. He's just amazing.
He is amazing.
And Taylor fit. Y'all, you couldn't work with anybody else.
No,
and he couldn't either. So it's just the perfect fit. So Project Zero does a few different things.
Right.
So from what happened in your home has moved out, and you are now the director of Project Zero, which is something you came up with, God put on your heart. And Project Zero really does three primary things. Connecting events. So, and we'll talk about those. It also raises awareness through these Project Zero films. I mean, in fact, I'm going to have Montana and drop some comments where she's going to give you some links to Project Zero's website. You guys have a YouTube channel. And she's just going to drop those in there so you can kind of keep up and watch. But I'm going to encourage you to watch some of the videos that Christie and her team produces. Unbelievable. And I think one of the things that's most beautiful about that is telling these kids stories, because very often they're invisible.
Right.
And so where did that come from? Where did it come from where you wanted to start telling the story of these kids?
Well, just a little history about that. As you said, it's really interesting, and I think sometimes when God calls us to do something, we feel like that's where we're always going to be.
Yeah.
And honestly, I did. I could not imagine myself not fostering after 19 years. But that calling has morphed and transformed and moved forward just by leaps and bounds over the years. And so when Project Zero began, really, I was listening to a sermon and at an orphan care conference, and the pastor said, if Christians were doing what we were called to do, there would be 0 kids in foster care waiting to be adopted.
That's
and
true.
I mean, I got home and I could not shake that. And so we had an adoption coalition, long story, that was dying because of grant money, et cetera, et cetera. And so Jeff said, well, why don't you just rename the coalition, change everything about it, and why don't you call it Project Zero? And that was it. That was the start of it. And so as we began to strategically plan what we were going to do, and our mission is to have 0 kids waiting, one of the things we realized is that there is beauty in allowing a child or a teen or a sibling group to share their own truth.
Yeah.
As much or as little of that as they want to share.
Yeah.
And in their own words, in their own way. And we saw from the very beginning that captivated people.
Yep.
And not only did it captivate people, but it compelled them to action. And so they couldn't just sit and listen to a child without doing something.
That's right.
And the beauty for the kids is it helps them to know that they're valued, that their story matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I was sitting in on a film shoot recently, listening to a 15-year-old girl. She came in and she was troubled. I mean, you could see in her demeanor that she was troubled, but she was anxious to share. And she began to share, and as she shared, there were 2 or 3 people in the room, and there are just times when you just don't know if you can listen anymore.
Yeah, powerful moments.
Because we learned that she'd been sex trafficked by her family, and she had a baby because of that. And, I said to myself, if everyone could sit here and hear that
Yep.
and put themselves in that place, remembering when I was 15, I had not a care in the world other than what football game I was going to go to,
Right,
or,
right.
What boy I thought was cute. And this girl had the weight of the world on her shoulders. And what am I going to do about it? What are we corporately going to do about that? And I will say that her heart gallery picture, after years of experience, is not going to be one that captivates people.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a photo that draws people in unless God speaks.
Yeah.
Because there are photos that I know our website's going to blow up when they land.
Sure.
Hers is not one of those.
Sure.
But she is no less deserving of this fight.
Yeah.
She is no less deserving of all I've got to give, and all we as a community of believers have to give.
That's right.
And so the short films just give them that opportunity, and they deserve it and so much more. They really do.
And really at the heart of so much of this, but by the way, the Heart Gallery I had the opportunity to see it morph. You know, when we first started working together, the Heart Gallery was still frame photographs that we would carry from one event to another, one church to another,
Right.
and it would just be still frame shots. And we would have professional photographers, we would come out, and that's kind of
Yes.
where I got started with you
Yes.
guys. We would take pictures of these kids, and I remember going home and telling my wife, when I still remember the kids, I still pray for them. I would take pictures of these kids, and when you're doing their photograph, we would do a photograph of them or them and their siblings or whatever. And while I was taking their picture, so often there would just be these conversations with these kids. And you're right, there's this absolute, you can feel inside of you the Holy Spirit saying, this is really important. This is near the heart of God.
Yes.
And I remember coming home and having their stories there. And so I know when you guys began to enlist incredible storytellers to tell these stories in film,
Right.
that I knew it was an incredible thing. And I'm gonna say it one more time. Montana's gonna drop it in there as a comment. You have to go and watch some of these stories. You have to. I know that there's times where we go, there's things that we just want to ignore. We want to close our eyes and we want to put our fingers in our ears. You can't do this. This is something you need. Because here's the thing about this. Everybody has something that they can do to participate.
That's right.
You know? And so when we read about a hero and we read about people who we look back on and we go, that was incredible. Whether it was someone who rescued somebody from drowning or someone who did something heroic in war, or maybe it was someone who shared Christ with somebody. Heroism or being a hero really boils down to one thing: recognizing your moment and your opportunity to take advantage of something that's important. And this is important. This is our generation of importance. Right. You mentioned something. You said, one of the things that convicted me was that if churches would do what they're supposed to do. When we say churches, we're talking about the assembly of believers. Right. If we were to do what we're supposed to do, that this would end.
It would.
So.
It would.
So all we need is, because the math plays that out. It's not even miraculous, actually. We're not even, it's funny about foster care. What always gets me when I think is it's not the miracle of it.
That's right.
It's not a miracle. It's just math.
Yes.
We have 600 local churches.
Yes.
A handful of people from every church says, I'm going to do something.
Yes.
The world changes.
Yes.
For these kids.
Well, in what we do, right now there are approximately 329 waiting kids. Okay. There's over 600 churches in our county, in our one county out of 75 in our state. If one family in half of the churches in one county adopted one child, we would have no children waiting.
Yeah.
Now, it's not that easy.
No.
It's not that easy.
Nope.
Kids that come from trauma, and all kids who are in foster care have had some kind of trauma. Even if they're a newborn baby, they've lost the voice of that birth mother. They've lost the nurture and even if there's yucky stuff going on in the womb, they've lost something.
Sure.
And so adoption, I like to say, is so beautiful, but it is so hard.
It is.
It is so hard. And I say that not necessarily as an advocate, although I am saying it as an advocate, but I'm saying it as an adoptive mom
Yeah,
as
right.
well.
Right.
And
We've had some stories.
Yes. And so, I would never coerce anyone to adopt ever.
Yeah.
I would never, I can't tell enough stories. I can't say the right things. I can't do anything to move someone to adopt.
It's good.
God has got to take you and not let you go until you say yes.
That's good.
And that one yes will change lives. I mean, it is just, it's a fact.
Sure.
Now, that one yes is not going to be easy. And it may take more sacrifice than you knew you could give.
Sure.
But it's going to be worth it. And a child's life is going to be changed.
Yeah.
I was actually sitting in the parking lot before I came in, and a woman called me and said, I need your advice. I'm walking into court in 30 minutes, and the child that's in my home, the rights are probably going to be terminated, and they're going to ask us, do we want to adopt? We already have 6 children. 3 of those are adopted. But here's the bottom line on it, Christy. Here's the bottom line. I feel like I've got to make the right decision, the decision that God wants, because this boy's soul is in my hands.
Yeah.
And so she was so right.
She's right.
And does that mean everybody should adopt? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But we all have to do something.
Sure. And there's plenty of areas to even participate with that. But you're right. The process is complicated,
Yes.
and it's hard. I remember one time I was griping to you. I don't know if you even remember it.
No.
But
You griping? No, I don't remember it. I really don't remember it.
we were working on, trying to get some people through the process. And sometimes the process is unwieldy. And, I'm a systems guy. I'm like, let's make this thing where it works.
Right.
Let's make it function. And I remember I go through my whole venting opportunity. I'm venting. I'm like, they shouldn't make it this hard. They should follow up. They should be calling them back. They should be doing this. And I remember you waited so patiently, and you let me get through my whole little rant for a moment. And Christy looked at me and said one thing. She said, hey, but Scott, these kids are worth it. Mic drop. You know what I'm saying? I'm like,
Yeah.
You're right. And it's interesting that I've come to grips with this reality with our, even through our church and
Right.
through people that we've worked with that are running through even the complications of the process is actually beneficial.
Right.
Because if we speedily got you in an easy way to this final thing where there's a child in your home, it's not all going to be easy then either. So you kind of temper the steel. The process sometimes temper the steel. Not to say that we shouldn't make things better. We do, and we should.
Right.
But at the same time, the struggle of the caterpillar coming out of the cocoon, it's important so that it can fly one day as a
Right.
butterfly.
Right.
And so I see that too. So Project Zero connects these qualified homes with these kids who need a home. Project Zero does that through some really cool events that really not been able to do much of this year,
Right.
which is hard.
That's hard.
You also tell their story in film. You also host the Heart Gallery. Heart Gallery used to be a physical gallery. Now it's hosted on the Project Zero website, which, by the way, you have to understand how monumental the work was in getting these kids' pictures. You got to understand that the state has this obligation to protect these kids.
Right.
And so someone that they would trust to have these pictures of these children and broker their story is a very valuable thing. And there's a lot of people that work for the state, and I know the state gets a black eye for a lot of things, but the state here and the work that you guys have done with the state is a beautiful thing.
It
And their
is.
trust with you
It
guys
is.
and how you handle that with such integrity to make sure that we're right on line with what's
Right.
going on is really important. Another thing Project Zero does, and I want to talk about this one though, is that not only are we trying to get these parents connected with these kids, not only are you trying to get their story told and let them tell their story, which does give them such a voice.
Right.
But the other thing is that I love, and I want you to talk about this, is how many things that you do to encourage the kids themselves.
Okay.
Talk to some of that. Even talk about, because one of the things that always kills me is when you talk about the birthday parties that you've thrown for kids that have never had a birthday
Right.
party. The cakes that have been baked for kids that have never had a birthday cake.
Right.
Tell us some of those stories.
Right. Well, I want to go back to one thing you said about the paperwork, and I do not remember you talking about that. But I think
I do.
think one thing that is so important to keep in mind through this whole thing, as you enter into foster care or adoption or whatever, is it's not about you.
That's right.
And so and that's hard. I mean, I have to preach that to myself.
Yeah, right.
It's not about me.
That's
it's
true.
not about,
True.
and so if the paperwork's lost or this happens or that happens, it's not about you.
Sure.
Just fill it out again,
That's
send
right.
it in.
That's right.
Make another phone call, whatever. But anyway, back to the kids.
They're worth
Yes,
it. They're worth it.
They are worth it.
And
They are worth it.
That really stuck in my head. And honestly, it has helped me as I talk to people, because what's funny is that any obstacle is enough to stop you when you don't know the value of what you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
But when you know the value of it, Mount Everest can't stop you. And so I've looked at people and I've looked them in the face and say, hey, look, you're going to have to elevate the value of what you're doing to be willing to go through what you've got to go through. You know? And you did that for me, and you did that from your heart, because that's how you live. I mean, that's like, Christie will wear you out. No one can keep up with Christie. You will not be able to keep up with her.
Oh my. Well, let me just say that I think for what you were talking about as far as doing special things for the kids, I think one of the things that is so critical in what we do is we realize that waiting kids lose hope.
Yeah,
the longer they wait, the
Yeah.
more hope they lose.
Yeah.
And so we believe, and you know, we really haven't come under a lot of fire for this, but every once in a while we will. We believe that we need to do things with excellence.
Yeah.
And so if we have a kid that shows up to a Heart Gallery photo shoot with yucky hair and whatever, we're going to run right then and we're going to buy clothing or whatever we need to do, because we believe that when we do things with excellence, it shows a watching world how much we value these kids.
Oh, that's good.
And it helps the waiting kids. And it helps people to understand their uniqueness and their value.
Sure.
And so, for instance, every year, and we made it through last year before COVID hit, we do Project Prom. And so Project Prom is where we take teen girls who are waiting that are going to prom, and we match them with fairy godmothers, we call them. They're mentors of sort. And we go to Dillard's. Dillard's opens their doors early for us, and the girls get kind of a private shopping event. We buy prom dresses and jewelry and shoes and Spanx. You got to have Spanx and all the things that they need to go to prom. Now, could we do that cheaper? Yes. Could we do used prom dresses? There's nothing wrong with that. If I wanted to do that for my daughter, that's great. But our kids are used to used.
Yeah.
They're used to being second best.
Yeah.
They're used to no one advocating and championing them, and we just aren't okay with that. Same thing with birthday parties. We've had kids who had never had a birthday cake, or never. We had a kid this year who wrote on his Christmas list, "I have never been asked what I wanted for Christmas before, so this really confused me." They're not. I don't know. They don't have that entitlement.
Sure.
Because they've never experienced that kind of giving. And so the beautiful thing about us doing these things is the people who understand our mission, and there are many of them, embrace this fully. And we had a woman in Vermont who took a Christmas list off of we had to do it virtually this year, and mailed her gifts from Vermont.
Wow.
Because she wanted to pour into the life of a child. And so all of that stems from valuing them, from not slapping a foster kid label on them. I don't call them foster kids. I call them, waiting kids or kids who happen to be in foster care.
It's good. It's good.
But they don't need a label.
Sure.
They need to have the opportunity, and it's going to take a family. They need to have an opportunity to be all that God has created them to be.
Sure.
And to live up to that potential. And so it's going to take a lot of us to have that happen.
Sure.
There are 122 plus thousand kids in the United States whose parental rights have terminated, and they're waiting for someone to say yes. And so, I feel like all of us as believers, our job is to get the word out about them.
Absolutely.
And then to do something.
Yeah. Well, if you think about the missional ministry of Jesus, the Bible describes us as orphans, and Christ came for us and adopted us
Right.
into his family. I mean,
right.
and so the high and holy place of the picture of God is that bringing in to being brought into a home and being
Right.
supplied and being cared for. So I think that's why our heart
Yes.
is so bonded to this story, is because it's
Absolutely.
our story. You know,
Yes, it
it's
is.
it's all of
It
us,
is.
lost and wayward and out on our
Right.
own, and sheep without a shepherd. And
Right.
and so you know, the other thing that I've seen you do over the years is I've seen you actually it's not just the events. There will be these kids, and there's going to be this kid, and it's not, there's times when it's not even an organizational thing, but there will be a kid who has a need. He needs a pair of shoes, or he needs something.
Right.
And Christie is that person who is just going to jump out there and get it done.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. I've had the opportunity to have, relationships with lots of kids, and, you know, that can be both a blessing and a curse. We had a boy that he's actually 21 now. He came into care at 9, and the issue in my mind is we should have found him a family when he was 9.
sure.
Sure. Bottom line, he should have had a family at 9, but he didn't. Moved through the system, came to be 17, went to a family, looked like it was going to be a good fit. But because of his trauma and because of, 8 years in foster care at that point, it wasn't a good fit. And he and I became really close. And I was on the phone with him one day. I was sitting in the parking lot of a shopping center. And I started my little speech about how, precious and valuable he was, and, how much he's loved. And he said, whoa, 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 whoa. He said, I don't want to get all up in your business, Miss Christie, but do you know how many times I've heard you say that? Do you know how many times I've heard you give that speech on TV or to me or to, in public? And I don't want to hear it. And I said, well, you know what? I thought for a minute. I said, you're exactly right. You're absolutely right. But I have 2 choices that I can make. One is just to say, forget it. This is too hard. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm tired. Or the other one is to keep fighting for you.
Yeah.
And I said, and I choose the latter.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep fighting for you. And let me tell you, he has put me through it over the last 3 years. And it has been, Project Zero's had the opportunity to buy bus tickets to get him back from, other states where he's gone, and, when he's gotten arrested and all of these different things, but the bottom line is he was in foster care because of decisions made for him,
Sure.
not by him.
Sure.
And the ramifications of those decisions are playing out in his life right this minute.
Sure.
But that doesn't negate my responsibility or the fact that he's worth fighting for.
Sure.
Even when my human nature says, there is nothing that's going to change this.
Yep.
Yes, there is. His name is Jesus.
That's right. That's
and
right.
he is able. He's a big God. And I don't know how. I can't figure it out. I've tried everything I know. We've thrown money at it. We've thrown things at it. We've tried. But he's worth fighting for.
Sure.
And so that's where I stand on that subject. And even though my humanness says sometimes, I don't know if I can do this anymore, he's always faithful to push forward. So,
That's good.
Yeah.
One of the saddest parts that we oftentimes see, especially in the system, is these kids. And let's clarify one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Am I accurate in saying that there are no waiting babies?
You definitely are. You will never see a baby in the Heart Gallery unless it is in a large sibling group.
Yes.
Or have special needs.
Special needs. Yes.
There are over half of the waiting families in Arkansas. I'm loosely guessing that are waiting on a child 5 and younger.
Yeah, because one of the things you hear people talk about is that all these waiting babies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's no waiting babies.
No.
But what we do have waiting is we have children that are a little older.
Yes.
We have special needs, and we have sibling groups.
Right.
And that's really one of the things that Project Zero focuses
Right.
on, which is the harder to place kids because the entry point of commitment is higher.
Right.
There's more variables.
Right.
And so people think at that, a little cuddly baby, there'll people line up for cuddly babies.
Absolutely.
So that's not an issue. We don't have a baby crisis in Arkansas. We do have teenagers crisis. We
Yes.
have, boys and girls, and we certainly have brothers and sisters.
Yes.
That is a crisis, and that's
Right.
what we try to bring attention to, and that's what you guys really work to bring
Yes.
attention to. I keep saying we, but it's y'all.
Yes.
Yeah, y'all
It's
work
we.
to y'all work to bring attention to these, because that's really important. But one of the sad things that happens, and I want you to talk to this a little bit. And why is this important? And what are some of the possibilities that people could do? Is these kids that time out,
Right.
and talk about what timing out is, and talk about what happens in the life of a kid when they hit that point, and what goes on from there.
Well, yes, that is something that we're fighting for all the time, because when kids turn 18, they can make the choice that they want to, go the independent living route, which means they don't want to be adopted.
Sure.
And so they will age out of foster care either at 18 or at 21. And, I understand that from their point of view. If you've been parented by a system who's doing the best they can,
Sure.
but they're not a home, and they're not
Sure.
a family, and they're not parents, you're tired of somebody telling you what to do.
Sure.
But I feel like even if you're 26 or 30, you need a family.
Absolutely.
And so, part of what we've been talking about is how do we help them understand that, because even kids as young as 15 can say, I don't want to be adopted. I want to just keep going the way until I get 18, and then I'm going to do whatever. But helping them understand that they don't know what they're signing up for when they say that.
Sure.
You don't know what it's going to look like to be 18 and not have an education, maybe not have, any skills, not have any money, not have any support. And I think for people just to take it to the grassroots level and think about yourself at 18.
Yeah.
If I hadn't had my parents' support, I didn't know how to do things.
Yeah.
I was in college, but I didn't, I was carefree.
Bank deposit,
Yes.
how to keep a checkbook. Who am I going to go home to? Who's going to wish me happy birthday?
Absolutely.
When I do have an accomplishment, I got a
Yes.
job.
Who am I gonna call?
Who do I celebrate with?
Yes.
Who's rooting you on, and those are all things that are absent in the life of a kid who grows up and doesn't have a forever home. That's tough.
And I think we, I think as Christians, that's hard to take in.
Absolutely.
Our hearts don't want to take that in. We
Sure.
don't want to believe that, that abuse and neglect and these hellacious things are happening right under our noses.
You bet.
It's too hard. It's too hard. And yet, if we don't do it, who's going to?
Sure.
And if we don't do it now, lives are at stake. Lives are
Yeah.
going to be lost, maybe not physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and some physically,
Yeah.
because we don't take action. And sometimes that action is as simple as just letting people know.
Sure.
Sometimes it means opening your home. Sometimes it means, I know with your particular church, there are scads of people who have fostered and adopted, and other people who support those people.
Sure.
And so, we can't, and I know I use the word fight a lot because I feel like I'm in a fight,
Sure.
in a battle,
Yeah, I can
in a
see that
war.
too, though.
And so we can't stop fighting once kids get to a certain age,
Mm-hmm.
I had a boy, well, he's 20 now, so it was 7 years ago. He walked up to me, his adoption specialist said, Christie, it was in the middle of this huge Christmas event, and it was just chaos in a beautiful way.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, he wants to talk to you. And I said, okay, great. Come on, hugged him back when we could hug people. And
Miss
and
those
he,
days.
yes, I do too. And he just looked me right in the face and he said, Miss Christie, I didn't even know he knew my name. He said, Miss Christie, I want you to find me a family. And I told Jeff, it was just like this bubble came down over the two of us, and there was not another thing going on in the room. And it was just a defining moment as I looked him in the face and I thought, oh Lord, help me find this kid a family. And I left there and of course we did everything we could. A family was found. It didn't work out. Another family was found. It didn't work out. Not necessarily because of him, but he aged out.
Yeah.
and he aged out without a family. And 2 weeks ago, I get this message from some weird name I didn't recognize, and it was him. And he just said, I started a GoFundMe account for myself, if you could pass this along, and I'm just like, that's not where we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's not how these stories are supposed to end.
No.
And there are so many, I can't just let it be all negative. There's so many beautiful, amazing, amazing stories. At this point, 850 of them that we've gotten to be part of. So I would never want to end that. But I do think there's an urgent cry from these kids.
Yeah, there is. And if you guys noticed, even on the thumbnail for this video, one of our advertisements, we talked about Christie being the mother of 850 kids. That's what we're talking about. That's how many children, through the efforts that God has given her to do, have been connected with Forever Homes. And that's a story that you just go, wow, what an incredible opportunity to be a part of that.
It is. It's unbelievably humbling. It's an honor. But it's also just so amazing to get to see God's hand call people.
Yeah.
I think our second short film we did was a boy that had been waiting 6 years. He had some special needs, just a lot of stuff. And he was kind of like my bodyguard at events, and he'd be right there on my shoulder.
Right.
And he'd always ask me, did you bring me my hot tamales? Did you bring me my Takis? And he said, I'm with you, Miss Christie. And I was like, okay. And so I'd be talking to people. He'd be right there. And so I loved him. And we have a huge event every year before COVID called the Disney Extravaganza.
Yeah, so cool.
And one year, about 2 years ago, I noticed him with this family, and it was a guy in an Air Force, like whatever they wear, the jumpsuit. It's not a jumpsuit, but anyway, whatever it is, flight suit. I'm sorry, yes, a flight suit. And sorry. Anyway, and I noticed them walking, and I was like, oh, out of the corner of my eye, and I was just scurrying around, and then I saw him again later, and I thought, oh my word. So I could not wait to get to the stack of inquiries from that day to see if his name was on any of them, because it never was. Let me just say that. And I got home, and you're just beat, and I've got this whole thing, and I'm just, it's like 350 inquiries, and all of a sudden, there it is, his name, the only name on their sheet. And long story short, they were chosen for him. He moved home. And the next summer, I got to be at his adoption in another city. And the judge asked him, why do you want to be adopted by this family? And he said, because I've been waiting for a family my whole life.
That's so good.
And they told me later that they had opened their home. They had 2 young sons. They had opened their home to adopt a little girl, and they saw his short film, and they looked at each other and said, this is him. And They came to the Disney Extravaganza, unbeknownst to any of us, stood at the opening, and this is, 1,000 people at this event, stood at the entrance and waited, hoping they would recognize him.
Wow.
He came in, they latched arms, and the rest is history. Has it been easy and breezy? No. But it's been beautiful.
Absolutely.
Because after 6 years of waiting, he was home, graduated from high school, has his own apartment now, and no more bodyguard. But, but that's okay. I don't need one. So
that's right.
It's stories like that just move me.
Yeah.
And show me God's power and favor, and the fact that zero's his idea.
That's right.
It's not mine.
That's right.
He is the author of zero.
That's right.
And how sweet it will be.
Yeah.
When we get to that point.
Yeah, and that's the effort that you move towards.
Yeah.
So one of the things we discussed, obviously we're operating in a with the virus, and we're having to, there's so many protocols that we're having to deal with and try to process through, which has affected how you do some of the work that you do. What are you finding now among the kids? Has this COVID environment, has it been how's it affected them? How the kids are going through the process?
Well, I think when it all started, I got messages, 2 or 3 messages from our kids saying, we're not going to have this year. We're not going to, And so I think obviously now we're almost a year out, and they're kind of used to that, unfortunately. But you know, I've thought so much through the year how it must feel to be them,
Oh,
to
yeah.
be one of them.
Absolutely.
And how we're all sequestered, you know, when we were all in quarantine with our families, eating
Sure.
popcorn, watching movies, you
Sure.
know, all of this.
Sure.
Just kind of hunkering down. They're doing that in a group home. Well, there's no such thing really as group homes, but maybe they're in a facility, maybe they're in a setting where they don't have that.
Sure.
You know, and
Sure.
it's scary.
Sure.
I mean, can you imagine being without the permanence of a family
No, I
and
can't.
worrying?
I
So,
know.
you know, it definitely, and the thing that I hate is just we really have ramped up our short film shoots and art gallery photo shoots, but not being able to hug them and just, you know, love on them that way. We have to encourage them other ways with words and candy and gift cards and that
Sure.
kind of thing, just
Sure.
to build hope. You know, it's a time that there's not a lot of hope right now.
You
And
bet.
so, you know, it's that part of it has been very, very difficult.
It's huge.
Um,
You know, even when we were talking before we even got started in the video, one of the things that occurred to all of us is with our production team and Montana, my assistant, and you know, all of that. Every single one of us has been affected
That's right.
by foster care, by
Yeah, it's
you know,
wild.
isn't it though?
Yes.
And so we were just kind of going through everybody's story, you know, and listening to that story, and it's crazy.
Yes.
But I think you see the opportunity in it. What do you feel like is the next big thing? What are you guys trying to accomplish? What would you like to see happen? I know we're moving to zero, and you've got an
Yes.
equation. There's
Yes.
one mathematical equation
Yes.
that you always use. Explain that equation. What's the
It
Project
is.
Zero equation?
1 + 1 = 0. 1 child plus 1 family equals 0 kids waiting.
Oh, that's good.
And my
And
other
it's just
one-
that simple.
It is just that simple, sort of. And my other one is what this bracelet says, which is stay on the wall.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, we began with one goal and we've continued with one goal, and that's to have 0 kids waiting. I think, you know, ensuring that every child has a short film, ensuring that we're doing the best we can through social media, through, you know, just our words, whatever, speaking, writing, whatever, to let people know about waiting kids. We often get questions from other states about implementing what we do. And so we've kicked that around a little bit, maybe not having Project Zero in other states, but allowing other states to implement our plan
Yeah.
into maybe an existing nonprofit.
Sure.
That so, you know, I think
Like an open source resource that just say,
Yes.
hey, look, here's what we did. Here's the recipe.
Yes.
And offering that. How cool is that?
here's our playbook, and
Yeah.
you know, so we've talked through that a lot. You know, I think definitely the having to be more innovative with the virus
Sure.
has slowed that down.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But I think it's something that we would be honored to do.
Sure.
To help other kids in other states
That's
be a
good.
part of that. So, but mainly it's just continuing. You know, I was telling you earlier that I wish that everybody could sit and listen to an interview.
Yeah.
And last week we had a sibling group of 6 come in. And the minute I saw them, the oldest one was 13, and he was short in stature, but he carried the weight of
Sure.
the world on his
Sure.
shoulders. He
Sure.
did not change expression.
Sure.
He was very methodical. The other kids were all over the place bouncing. And he sat down and he followed instructions to a T, but he never changed expression.
Sure.
And Nathan began the interview, the filmmaker that we work with, and he said his name and his age and went through, and then he began to ask the kids, what do you love about the person sitting next to you? And so the sister, who was closest in age to him, Nathan said, what do you love about your brother? And she said, I love that he protects us.
Mm.
And so my heart at that moment, I was thinking that's exactly what I knew was happening. He was parenting these kids.
You bet.
So Nathan circled back around and said to him, if you don't mind me asking, what did your sister mean?
Mm.
And he said, I used to make sure that they had clothes and I would feed them.
Mm.
And he began to weep, and his guard just kind of came down, and we all of us, and it was just a broken mess. I mean, it was just, and we grabbed him, some tissue, and I said to his adoption specialist, no 13-year-old should have the weight of 5 little brothers and sisters on his shoulders. We have got to find him a family where he can be a kid.
Yeah.
He can be a 13-year-old boy playing video games and basketball and just eating everything in the house. And, that's what people need to see.
Yeah.
And they need to understand that these are kids who are carrying adult weight on their shoulders. Some weight that adults can't even carry.
No, you're right. You're right.
And he deserves to be home. And so that is the bottom line.
Yeah.
We've got to understand the God-given value in every one of these kids. I don't care how they act, what they've been through, what their paperwork says.
Sure.
Any of that. Yes, there will be modifications and things you'll have to do to fit their needs, but it doesn't change their value or their worth.
Sure.
And so, prayer is a big thing. Prayer is huge, and that's one of the things that I've just, been convicted about, that we need to persevere in prayer until every one of these kids is home.
No, absolutely. One of the things that I would love to talk to, is, we're living in a world that's very divided. We've seen over the past year so much that has divided us along, whether it's political or racial lines, and we see so many struggles against, one group against another group, and all of that. One of the things that I love, that I see when we're working with kids that are in the system, and we see people participating, is that everybody comes together.
That's right.
We have that one common goal.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter. Nobody cares about the color of that little face. Nobody cares about political things at that moment. All of a sudden, there's this objective.
Yes.
Human beings,
Yes.
these precious, valuable human beings, and what we can do about it. And it's going to take an army.
It is.
It's going to take a group of us. Not everybody is called to do everything, but everybody's called to do something.
That's right.
And so,
Absolutely.
what are some of the things, as people think about this? Because I have people all the time talking about, how can we, overcome these obstacles and stuff. One of the things you can do is love other people.
That's
I
right.
mean, and I'll tell you,
That's right.
what better opportunity to love people and participate. And here's the other thing. So often we don't listen to each other anymore. If someone's on one side or someone's on the other side, you just find that their listening skills are really diminished.
Yeah.
But when you begin to listen to the plight of another person, and you begin to see the world from a perspective that you've never had, you begin to see the hurt and pain that they're going through, all of a sudden there's this power of just having compassion unlocked in you for that person.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, racial things go away. All of a sudden, political things go away. The divide goes away, and there's one thing that exists, and that is this opportunity to care and love for a group of people. Right. What would you say right now for those of us that are kind of here on the periphery? What are some things that are needed? How do people participate? What are things that we could do? I mean, what is a list of things that you feel like that people could jump on?
Well, I think, obviously there is, in Arkansas, there are 4,700 kids in foster care. Okay. I think last I heard there were about 1,600 families. So foster families are much needed.
Sure.
Even though that's not what we do.
Sure.
That it's much needed. Adoptive families, families who are called to adopt, but who also are in tune to learn and go into it with their eyes open, realizing that it's going to be a risk and it's going to be a sacrifice, and you're not going to be able to go along with life as usual.
Yeah.
You're going to have some other things you need to do.
Sure.
There's also opportunities to support adoptive families through whether it's babysitting or casseroles or those kinds of things. Prayer is a huge thing. Get on our website, look in the faces of those kids, pick one, pray for all of them, call them by name.
Yep.
We would covet those prayers. There's opportunities for you to.
Let me pause
No,
right
go
there
ahead.
on the prayer thing. Here's one of the things one of the things we've done at that church, and one of the things that we do personally, my wife and I do. The beauty of the Heart Gallery on Project Zero's website is, here's what's really cool, is that you can pick a sibling group, as many or as few as you want, and you can start praying for those children. one of the great things is that Project Zero updates that and
Yes.
keeps you informed. When those children have a breakthrough,
Right.
y'all, you want to see your faith expand.
Right.
It is so incredible to pray for this kid, see their face.
Yes.
And I do think seeing their faces is so important.
does help.
That's one of the reasons why I believe the Heart Gallery is so important. I think that's one of the reasons why you enlisting these incredible storytellers to make these Project Zero films are so important. Is that we see their face. We're not talking about a number.
Exactly.
We're not talking about the 4,700. We're not talking
Yes.
about the 600 or the 300 or
Yeah.
whatever. We're
Yes.
talking about a little kid named Adrian,
Right.
and so, or Jesse.
Yeah.
And you pray for them by name, and then to watch God work through your prayers on this kid's behalf.
Absolutely.
And it's it's a celebration. It really is something that's needed. So continue on.
It
Prayer,
is.
such a big deal.
Yes, prayer is such a big deal, and you're so right. And I can tell who you've been praying for by the names you called out, and that's just it's so beautiful. And on our Facebook page, you will see when we do a 1 less or a 2
Yes.
less or a 5 less post where we share that kiddos have families found, and those are just great days. Those
And you
are
know what?
amazing
Prayers
days.
don't stop then.
No, they don't.
Because now you're
They
going to be praying for
continue.
this family
The
because
family.
there's this transition and there's this when families adopt, in my summation, I look at it like this. It's not about expanding your family at that. When you look at this, it's not.
Right.
You can't really think about it like that. It's not like we just got pregnant kind of
Yes.
thing. It's more like our family has this mission. We expanded our family, that's true, but we now have this mission. And it's going to come with some unique things, but
Right.
biologicals do too.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh,
Absolutely.
we got some of those. You're going to have that.
Absolutely.
But what a chance if you go into. I think expectation has a lot to do
Yes.
with our fortitude.
Yes.
Is if I understand what I'm expecting. If I've watched a commercial and everything was it was hard, then it got great and it was all given to me in 30 seconds. If you go in there like that, you're going to have a
Yes.
crushing disappointment.
Yes,
It's not like that.
absolutely.
But here's the deal. Something worth it is worth it.
Yes.
Someone worth
right.
it is worth
That's
it.
right.
And we stay focused on that. Here's the other thing. It's even like, you were talking about the young man that timed out and all the problems. You can't judge the book by the middle chapters.
That's right.
God's not finished with that story yet.
That's exactly right.
And here's what I've seen God do. I've seen God take just a small little portion of time at the end of the story, a person's story, and I've seen him turn their life completely around and do some incredible things, and you go, look
There
at
it
that.
is.
Look at that.
That's right.
So we keep praying, believing, expecting.
That's right.
So prayers, there's opportunities for people to participate in support process.
Yes.
I mean, foster care
Yes.
and adoption.
Yes.
Yes. Start that process. It's not an overnight thing.
No,
There's a
takes
process
time.
to it, and I would imagine it's a little more complicated now with
Yes.
with
Yes.
COVID
Things
and
being online
yeah.
and all that kind of stuff.
But it's worth that. What else? What else?
There's tangible things you can do too. Like we just had the most. I literally, my breath was taken away at Christmas this year because we had to totally revamp what we did, and we partnered with the Arkansas Trucking Association, and we took Christmas on the road in 6 semi trucks. It was the coolest thing.
Shannon is a good person to have around.
Yes,
isn't she?
it was so cool.
That's
It
great.
just took my breath away. But what really took my breath away was we ended up with like 485 Christmas lists. And usually we recruit a couple or 3 or 4 churches to help us with that.
Sure.
Well, churches weren't really meeting. So we put all of that online. And we had all 483 kids taken.
Wow.
And then people doing other things. And they were people from like I mentioned earlier, from other states who were taking them and sending them. And one of our little guys is a guy with autism, 11-year-old Alex, and he loves vacuum cleaners. Everything he does revolves around vacuum cleaners. And his favorite thing is if his foster mom will let him vacuum like all morning, and so he wanted that for Christmas. So we put it out there. Do you know
I need that kid.
that first of all, I got crazy and I bought him like all these shirts with vacuum cleaners and the history of vacuum cleaners. I bought him this book that had all the vacuum cleaners. Well, we reached out to Hoover. They sent him a vacuum cleaner.
Stop it.
Dyson sent him a vacuum
No
cleaner.
kidding.
Then a woman in another state, this vacuum cleaner shows up on my front porch one day, and it was for Alex. He got 3 vacuum cleaners for Christmas, and all this other stuff, all the other stuff on his list. But people were just, oh my word, people were so amazing.
Yeah.
They took, and we do things a little different. It's not a toy drive.
Sure.
It's kids' Christmas list, which
Yeah.
means it has more expensive items.
Sure.
It has specific items. If they love unicorns, if they, if they
Sure.
want an Xbox. And so we had people just loving on our kids.
That's so
So
good.
that's an opportunity too.
Yep.
And people will sometimes hear things in short films and mail us, a ukulele or whatever it is that some
Sure.
kid likes. And so just really taking ownership in what we do. And we're just,
Yeah.
we're humbled by that.
That's
We're
so good.
so humbled by that.
So good. And Project Zero is really, you guys are really good at brokering those things to those children and making sure
Yes.
that gets there and the
Yes.
connections there. That's the beautiful part of them being the liaison and all of that. I know that what you guys do costs money. I know that there's an opportunity for people to give. She's not going to say this, so I'll say it for her. So there's an opportunity to give, Project Zero is a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit organization. All the contributions are tax deductible. So if you out there and you're sitting on a pile of cash and you're like, man, I need to do something with this stimulus money. Here it is. Let's affect the kid. Here's what I will tell you about Project Zero. And we have partnered with Project Zero
Yes.
and
Thank
for
you.
a number of years as a church, financially and otherwise, is that you will never find an organization that has more integrity as far as, the way things are spent, the way things are done. It is always about the kids. No one's over here sitting on a pile of money getting rich. This is all about children. It's all about getting to zero. That's how it's always been run. And so there's opportunities. You can go to the Project Zero website, and that's projectzero.org.
Yes. The
And
Project Zero.
The Project Zero.
We had to add the because
the-
Project Zero was already taken.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I know. That's all right. It's not near as cool as this one, though, I'll tell you for sure. But anyway, and you can give through that. There's always opportunities, especially if we track along with your Facebook posts and stuff, because
Yes.
you're always bringing things to our attention and
Yes.
saying, hey, here's something to be praying
Right.
about. Here's something that's going on. Here's a
Right.
story. Here's
Yes.
what's great. So,
Yes.
and sharing.
Yes.
Share this podcast. That's one thing, but I want to say even moreover, as you watch some of these incredible films that Project Zero has produced, and again, I go back to awesome storytellers, and you don't have to be an awesome storyteller as much as you have stories that are awesome to tell.
Exactly.
But you have awesome storytellers too.
Right.
And so watching some of those, sharing those, let God speak to you about what he wants, but
Yes.
everybody has a part. Everyone can participate.
That's right.
This is
Absolutely.
we put a lot of energy into arguing and complaining and griping and being mad at other people and whatever else. This is a chance for us to put energy towards something that's
Absolutely. With no pressure. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no condemnation.
That's
it's,
right.
It's just a command to care for the widow and orphan.
yeah,
And we can all do that in some way.
we sure can.
So,
Christy, I am so thankful you were here today.
well, I'm honored to be here.
Such a blessing.
Absolutely.
So much fun. We could go on for hours, but what I want to do is I want to I just want to just say this, that as we listen to these stories and you see the passion and the conviction that goes along with it, I just think it's one of those things that you and I need to investigate. I think it's really important for us to investigate. Don't preconceive anything. Let God guide you into it,
Yes.
and then let Him tell you what He wants. And everybody can participate, and it'd be a great thing. So,
Amen.
I want to thank you for coming. Can I pray for us?
Please do.
Yeah, I'd love to. Lord, thank you for this day. I thank you for the opportunity we have to just discuss and talk about things that are so very important. Father, I pray for these children. I pray for each one that is in the Heart Gallery. I pray for each child that finds themselves in a place where no fault of their own, God, that they are feeling hopeless and helpless. I pray for the opportunity to encourage. I pray for the opportunity to enlist people. I pray for the opportunity to connect people with these children. And I pray for God. I pray for Zero.
Yes.
Lord, I don't feel that that's beyond what you've already
Yes.
given us capacity to do. I just think it's essential that we participate. And if we would take seriously your mandate and our opportunity, I thank God we could get there.
Yes.
And what an incredible day of celebration
Yes.
that would be, that we no longer have kids waiting, but we have waiting parents and we have
Yes.
waiting families, but the kids aren't waiting anymore. How great that would be. Lord, we look forward to that. Thank you for Christy. I pray that you bless her and Jeff and their family, Lord. What an amazing family they have, Lord. And I pray you continue to bless the work of Project Zero and use them in a great way, God, to bring glory to your name. Father, we love you and we celebrate your presence. We offer this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So God bless you guys, and we thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys next week, next Tuesday, 11 a.m., and we'll be talking about some other stuff from there. But anyway, till then, God bless you.